Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Morning Magazine for this October 7th, 2020. Your host, James J. Malouf here, and we are joined today by Lieutenant Investigator Joe Zurfluh. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We had to pull a bit of an audible today. We normally have Sheriff Sean Becker in with us, and he's busy this morning, so we weren't able to bring him in. The day job comes first for you guys, so it's very understandable. And between me and you, Joe, I needed a break from him. So I'm joking.
I did too.
We love Sean. We love being able to talk to him, and it is so great to be able to have somebody like him in our community in the position he's in, where from day one, from the moment I met him off air, let alone on air, just very transparent, very honest, and what can we do to help? How can we make things better? And I've always appreciated his perspective on things. So I definitely appreciate his time. Any chance he gets in here, he deserves a day off from me. That's what I feel like, actually. I feel like he could use a break from me from it. So we also want to thank Kev and our friends over at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media for being in. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. We always appreciate it. Joe, wanted to start today kind of getting into this Crime Stoppers thing that you guys have coming up. I think it's a really fun event, and wanted to touch on that.
Sure. I am the law enforcement coordinator for Wood County Crime Stoppers. So the Crime Stoppers board actually consists of civilian volunteers, basically. But as far as the law enforcement side, tips get passed. They come in to dispatch or directly to us, and then we route them as needed. The event is this Saturday at the hockey rink at the River Kings game. So I will be there. There will be, I'm not sure how many members of the board, of course, might not know till the day of, but we'll have, things to hand out. And if anyone has questions about the program or anything like that, that's why I'm there. If you have questions about like what we do with tips, the confidentiality behind it, it's paramount with the program. I can really talk about anything.
Well, that's really. I'm glad you're open to talk about it, because I find that really interesting, and I think that's something that it's been around. Crime Stoppers, in one form or another, in every community, has been around as long as I've been alive. I'm sure in your lifetime too. It's been around. Some form of it has been there, but I don't think we know a lot about it. I don't think we know a lot about certain things that you mentioned right there, as far as the confidentiality. That's an important part of it too. But even how you guys get tips and how you follow up on them, because I imagine one of the things that has always stood out to me about it is the false information taking away from the actual crimes that you could be solving, that kind of thing. Is that a big an issue, or is that not really? It seems like it would be to a citizen to me, but
I mean, it is, of course, something that happens occasionally. You don't get a lot of false information through Crime Stoppers. Sometimes there are things that come in that you can't act upon. We've gotten tips for other agencies, other counties, and when you respond, because you can communicate with the tipster through the P3 app, or even you can call in, of course, or you go to woodcountycrimestoppers.com and make a tip that way. But like some other areas don't have quite as good of a program as we do. They're not as responsive, maybe, or it's not as easy to make a tip. So they will make them to us, knowing that we'll route them appropriately that way. But when a tip comes in, you forward it to whichever jurisdiction is going to be looking into it. Even if it's something relatively minor, it's going somewhere. Someone's going to see it. Yeah. A lot of times there is frustration, not only with anonymous tips, but even any crime reporting, that maybe nothing's getting done. Something as simple as, maybe an ordinance violation, to something major as, there's suspicious activity, but it continues. You have to understand that we have to build a case that's going to survive legal scrutiny. Right. So it's not like you can just, run there and, make an arrest, write a ticket or whatever. One key point, though, that people should keep in mind is that a Crime Stoppers tip is not necessarily going to be received immediately. So if there is an emergency or an ongoing incident like a dangerous driver, you need to call 911 or call the non-emergency number to report that. Otherwise, it could be potentially a day or two before that gets where it needs to go.
Understandable. Well, that you guys have to take care of the most important things first. Certainly, the most time-sensitive things first and everything. Kind of doing a little bit of a breakdown of how that works and everything. Say for example, I call up and I know this person, Pam, who's returning videos and not rewinding them. Horrible crime,
Safe
obviously.
example.
Yeah, certainly a crime that you guys would not be involved in and a waste of your time, but just as a safe example. I call up, I have this important tip and everything, and I call in. It goes to a recording service, or do I talk to a live person, or?
You can talk to a live person.
Okay.
You can chat basically, and it is all anonymous. And so in the middle of the night, a dispatcher, it's going to come in and they'll see it if they're not busy. If there's a bunch of emergencies going on, it might sit there a while.
Okay.
But they will communicate with you, try to find out specific details. Where does it need to go? Who does it need to go to?
Is it the same dispatchers that are in charge of 911? It's not a different department. They're all, boy, that job. That is a tough gig. That's something right there.
It really is. It really is, and it's easy to not think about them a lot because it's the officers coming to your house or the the fire department. Everyone loves firefighters. That are coming out to handle things. And when you're in crisis, the person you're going to be talking to first is that dispatcher, and that dispatcher is the one who's going to be responsible. To get you the help that you need.
There's certain jobs, like a lot of what you do, and that I always think that they're like my first thought is goalies in hockey. It takes a certain type of guy to be a goalie in hockey. You've got to have a certain attitude, a certain kind of just personality to be able to do it. Every goalie I've ever met is very similar in certain ways. They're just different, different people. To do a job like that, to be a dispatcher, you really have to be selfless. You really have to have certain characteristics that just stand out, and it is such important work that they do. You laid it out perfectly right there, where they are not only the first people that we're talking to with in these harsh moments, but it's so key to the information we give them relaying it to you guys, and being able to do that, being able to get you not only the information quickly but accurately. That's a tough job.
Well, and think about how fast on their feet they have to be. They're taking this call. They could have taken a barking dog call. They could have taken, the next call can be someone whose car's broke down. Mm-hmm. The next call can be, one of the most serious incidents you can imagine.
Yeah.
And not unlike us, they don't know what might be coming in. But unlike us, they also have to accurately record the information that's being reported to them. Yeah. Potentially prioritize it. I mean, a lot of times, calls do get backed up. They have to accurately then relay we've all played the telephone game. Yeah. So they have to give us that information because they're worried about the citizen that's calling that needs help. They're worried about the officers that are responding or the firefighters that are responding. What kind of dangers are they potentially headed into? I imagine it's an extremely stressful job. I don't have experience in it other than working with them every day and knowing that we have very good dispatchers here, and I'm glad to have them all.
I think it's something that it would be great to one of these days be able to get a dispatcher in and talk to them and be able to kind of understand their job a little bit better, give a little more light to it and everything sometime down the line.
I'm sure we can make that happen.
I appreciate you bringing that up and giving us those details, though. And so much of this is stuff that it may not be breaking news, but it's important for people to know and understand this breakdown, especially if you're ever in this situation. And God, we hope you're not. But if you're ever in that situation, you do have to call one of these dispatchers. Chances are you're having to think on your feet too, and you're having to be, in one of the harder moments you're going to be in. So understanding how to relay that information so that we can get things taken care of and take care of people. It's so key. So the Crime Stoppers event going on this Saturday again?
Yes. Puck drop is at 7. We'll be there and set up at 6.
Excellent. And it's going over at the rec center?
It is.
The Southwell County Rec Center.
Yep, on 16th Street there.
Yeah. That's really cool, especially River Kings having their home opener this weekend and everything. It all works out really well. That's great. And any chance to not only take in some hockey, but to work with the River Kings and everybody involved, that's just a great community event.
It is.
They do some really good. They reach out a lot with that kind of stuff too. They do really good about that over there.
Yeah, Jen. I'm gonna hack her last name if I try to pronounce it. There's Z's and all kinds of.
I know what you're talking about. That.
She is very passionate about it. She's very great at setting things up, setting this event up. She was my point of contact.
So when it comes to the Crime Stoppers program, again, I call up. I have that great tip and everything, and I relay it to the dispatcher, and then they get that information to you guys. How do they get that information to you? Do they call? Are you guys there in person? Do you
typically email?
Okay.
We do get urgent, basically crime reports, sometimes sent in that way, which is not ideal, but it does happen. And when they see that, then they might send a deputy or an officer immediately. Most of the time, though, the tips are, for things that are ongoing, like your felonious failure to rewind your video, which surprised you remember VHS.
Yeah, right. It was really dating myself on that one.
So that that could be an ongoing investigation. It could be days old. It could be years old. I mean, potentially, and so that you have information that might lead us to a suspect. Hopefully, we'll make an arrest. Primarily, that's routed through email, because there's not an urgent, like right now, send somebody need there. So we all see it. Myself, Lieutenant Travis Esser with the Marshfield Police Department, multiple officers at Marshfield, multiple at Rapids, Port Edwards, Nakusa. Every agency in the county has some point of contact. There are at least one of us, if not multiple, at each agency that sees all of these tips. But also remember, like, you're never going to be asked to identify yourself. So do not go on our department Facebook page or the Crime Stoppers Facebook page and expect to make an anonymous tip. It does not work that way.
Yeah.
Once the tipster is known, Crime Stoppers actually will not be involved anymore, because anonymity is paramount. And this is something I didn't even know until I got involved in it. Once that's lost, then the Crime Stoppers, that's not their mission.
Yeah.
So,
I wouldn't have thought of that either until you mentioned it there. That is really interesting. Huh. Okay. So I'm sure that it has changed so much over the years of the way this is done. But the breakdown of it is very, very interesting, especially with the tech side of it, understanding that part of it and everything. And it also reminds you of how important this tech world is in every field. We don't think about it often with law enforcement, but it is. It's a key part of things.
It is. Growing up in the 90s, I remember I was driving through Rapids once, and there was a driver ahead of me taking out road signs. And I had to stop at a gas station and make a phone call. I mean, I didn't have a cell phone.
Right.
But now, crime reporting has, it's instantaneous now. But unfortunately, with the technology that makes it easier for us to do our job, it also opens up new opportunities for criminals to take advantage of people.
That actually, you segued perfectly into something that I wanted to bring up with Sheriff Becker, and I can ask you just the same. I know that especially this time of year, as we get closer to certain things, whether it's a holiday or a presidential election or your taxes are due, any of these things, the scammers come out. They make their ugly heads known and everything. And these cowards come out and try to take advantage of a lot of our community. And especially in the Wood County area, we have a very strong senior population. And I always like to kind of mention when we get a chance to talk to you guys, if there's anything going around right now currently. I haven't seen any scams currently going on, but I know that they exist. I know that you guys would know better than I do. Is there anything currently kind of that people should keep an eye out for?
Well, I mean, of course, they don't really necessarily stop.
True. It's not a seasonal thing. Yeah.
Right. It's, they do take advantage of things like elections, and it's sad because you don't know, is this really a canine donation calling you,
right,
or is it someone who just wants to get your credit card number? What I did, I got called from an FOP. It wasn't even a Wisconsin thing, but I said, yeah, I'll think about donating that. Mail something to me, and they get, a lot of these are like Crime Stoppers, for example, will hire a third party to basically fundraise for them, and they do solicit through telephone calls.
Yeah.
If you're not on the list, of course, but I don't blame people that don't, want to trust that.
Yeah.
Especially with as, savvy as they can be. I found out just probably 3 weeks ago my Social Security number has been suspended, which is means absolutely nothing. But I got that phone call from that the IRS doesn't. I mean, what would that do anyway? If but they are, some of them are very good at being very convincing.
Yeah, well, they're con artists. And they got into this for being cowards and lazy.
Yep.
But they do it because they have some charm or charisma that they can try to pull people in on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And don't beat yourself up. I mean, if you're a victim of it, I mean, it's you're not foolish. You fell for a good con. But report it as soon as you can, because we can. We have a lot of times they're not even in the country, so it's not like we can go hold anyone accountable, but we can at least get you information to get the ball rolling on, changing account numbers if necessary, protecting your identity, stuff like that. So.
And the information you share may help another citizen, may help
Absolutely.
somebody else out there so that they don't have this happen to them. And I appreciate so much that you say something that I think is so key in this that I did not know until talking to people that have been, scammed before. And that's that shame part of it, that it's one thing to get hustled. It's another thing to feel foolish. And none of us like feeling that way. So then you can tell strangers about it. That's a tough stretch to make for some people, especially proud people, people who, have lived their whole lives and never had anything like this happen to them. They're in retirement or something, and then this happens, and they lose hundreds or thousands of dollars. And it's not easy to go to a stranger, whether it's just even though it's a police officer or something, it's still tough to kind of make that conversation happen sometimes. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed.
Absolutely.
There are so many people that are incredible. We saw this some years back with the Bernie Madoff thing. There are people who are incredibly smart that made many, many, many millions of dollars doing great business moves and everything. They got hustled by that guy. It happens all the time. This is what they do, And it's not to say that they're good at what they do. They are good at finding the weakness in us, in our lives. Basically, we're all, so many of us are trying to make another dollar, or trying to invest our money smartly. And oftentimes they're taking advantage of things that are key to us or important to us. The canine thing that you brought up was very interesting. I thought the example, because I know that happened some years back, if not that long ago, where my parents even got a call from somebody saying, "Hey, we're looking for donations for our canine unit for our local police department." But they didn't say Wood County. They just said local police department, and that made my dad stand out pretty quick. And it's pretty hard to hustle a hustler like my dad. So we had a bit of a bias there, a little had something going for us on that end. But not everybody has something like that, obviously. So it's key to, what he did was pass that information on. And that's so important on this, too, is if it happens to you, it's not just, oh, well, I caught it before they caught me and I hang up on them. It's, hey, that phone number, everybody's got caller ID now. Pass that phone number on. Pass on whatever little bit of information you have to our law enforcement agency so that we can help this not happen to other citizens.
Right.
The Crime Stoppers number, what is that? Is it still the same number?
It is. It's of course you were going to ask me, put me on the spot.
I didn't want to do that to you.
It's an 800 number. It's toll free. Is it 325 stop?
Check it out. Yeah.
It's on the website there. Almost everything comes in through P3 now, though. The P3 app, you can download it on any smartphone. Log right in, and that is what you use to basically instantly communicate with dispatch.
1-877-325-7867.
Which is stop. 7867 should spell stop.
Yes,
okay.
It should. You're right, actually. I think 877-325-STOP is the number to call. And certainly the event this Saturday is a really fun opportunity for the community and everything, but certainly important for Crime Stoppers and how important that program is. Right. Do you have when it comes to this program or anything? Do you have any tips for citizens when they're calling Crime Stoppers?
Just obviously don't give any identifying information. You don't leave your name, don't leave your phone number, because unless it's some sort of I don't know how it would be a phone number that's not identifying, but if one exists, then maybe it'd be okay. Because like I said before, the anonymity part is taken very seriously. It's so I'm not a member of the board. I'm just basically the one who coordinates information. When a tip is made, it'll be followed up on. Be patient. If you're doing it just for a reward, that's fine. That's part of the program. The reward is what gets people to make tips. Some people are not interested in a reward, and that's fine too. But if it leads to information that's beneficial, an arrest is made or something like that, then we'll fill out a form and we'll take that to the board, and they approve and decide on whatever type of reward to give. And then we will take that to like some neutral place like a bank and give you like this number that only through that secure app. But all this can take significant time potentially. So I had one where recently I reached out. It was about 6 months old, and I haven't got a response yet. But because like I said, maybe the person's not even interested in a tip and they don't want one. But so it can take time. So don't they do have some quick 50 type rewards in like schools. Being a county agency, we're not dealing with a lot of high schools. We do have Auburndale, but I know Marshfield has that program, and the only thing is it has to be for a crime.
Yeah.
So forfeiture violations are not crimes. Or a safety thing though. So like if someone has a weapon in a school, that would definitely qualify.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate those examples too, and it's never a bad idea to remind people of what to bother you guys with and what not to be blunt.
And don't ever think you're bothering us.
No, and I knew as soon as I worded it that way.
Yeah,
that was a bad way to word it.
Calling you out.
But I do think that is just as important as the part of what I said there. Is not feeling hesitant to call. You should never feel that way, especially if you have an inkling. Trust your gut. Our guts, our instincts, oftentimes are telling us the right direction to go. It's important to trust that oftentimes. Before we go to break, I want to remind people that the phone lines are open. If you wanted to have questions for Joe, he's willing to take them, 715-424-2600. I did want to mention, too, that you guys have a new narcotics investigator. Is that what you were saying earlier? I wasn't sure if I wrote the notes down right, but...
Yeah, it's called a COPS grant. It's federal funds. It's going to fund a narcotics investigator for 3 years, and then then we have to fund the fourth year. That'll be taken care of through the regular budget process when the time comes. So by hopefully the first of the year, we will have someone selected to fill that role. It is a designated drug investigative role. So that's, for the most part, all that they will be handling.
Right on.
So
it is certainly, I especially when I know that I'm going to be talking with you guys, I always like to pick the audience's brain and talk to our listeners, our community members, and find out things that they're interested in. Especially there's a lot of people that are working right now and can't call in. And I have to say, there's a couple of things that always come up. The trains, which you guys can't do anything about. I always find it funny when that comes up and they're like, well, they can't do anything about that.
Right. There's...
Yeah. That's we could spend the whole show talking about that.
I could. I'm right there with you.
Certainly, that is another issue that always comes up is drug concerns. Whether we're talking any specific drugs, that changes day to day, maybe. But as far as when I talk to people, today they're worried about this, tomorrow they're worried about that. But overall, umbrella drugs are a problem, and that kind of thing. So. It certainly is great to hear that you guys got this an extra kind of set of hands on deck.
Right.
And it's nice too when you have a specific category you're dealing with, that they can just focus on that. I think that's something that must be, I imagine for you guys, a blessing too in a lot of ways.
It is. It's, investigations, you can have several dozen open cases and you really have to, it's difficult, but I found that the best way is just stay in touch with the victims. Let them, assure them that you haven't forgotten about them. The drug investigations are a little different because you don't have, they tie into a lot of our property crimes, but basically all you're going after are the dealers and the substance and stuff like that. But it is so much to do that to effectively do it, you have to just focus on that aspect of investigations. And I mean, we do have a drug investigator, so now adding one is going to be very beneficial.
Yeah, and I mean, this is such a domino thing where that part of the community, taking that down and bringing those numbers down and everything, it dominoes into the rest of the community being healthier. And it gets back to something I'm just reminded of. The first conversation I really had with Sean was about mental health and this idea of getting rid of the revolving door. And the drug world is a huge part of that revolving door. Oftentimes, whether it is because of addiction or income or any of these other things, people coming in and out. And part of stopping that from happening is having somebody, more help with the narcotics investigations and everything, and being able to not only, it's not just about making busts, it's about stopping future busts. It's about stopping that revolving door and kind of having more hands on deck for that help. It's great to hear. It's good for everybody.
The goal is to basically save lives, to get people off drugs, to hopefully keep them from using them in the first place.
Yeah. We are again speaking with Lieutenant Investigator Joe Zurfluh from Wood County Sheriff's Department. We have our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media in with us as well. And we're opening the phone lines to you, 715-424-2600. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have more Morning Magazine for you. It's AM 1320 WFHR. Welcome back, everyone, to Morning Magazine for this October 7th, 2020. Your host, James, here, and we are joined by Investigative Lieutenant Joe Zurfluh. Am I saying that right, Joe? Your title?
Are.
Okay, I want to make sure to get that right. You've earned it. You deserve it to be said right. I want to thank our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media for being with us as well. Always appreciate you guys being here. So, again, and remind you guys out there, if you have questions for Mr. Zurfluh, please give him a call, 715-424-2600. Feel free to call up and join the conversation. You guys recently were tackling the budget. I kind of wanted to touch on that, if you don't mind.
Sure, and I'm not a budget guru.
Sure.
That would be our chief deputy, of course, but he's in meetings. This is the season for them, so... But we had struggles this year. COVID kind of threw everyone a curveball, but ultimately we are going to make budget. We're doing well despite, sometimes being short, overtime concerns. Kind of you try to predict, but a year like this has been difficult. But I talked to the chief deputy actually right before I headed over here, and despite COVID-19 and all of our challenges, we've been able to work through everything, and he's getting ready to, present it to the county board and everything. So
good to hear. Very good to hear, especially with the type of year it's been, where we're losing so many different groups and organizations and businesses, and seeing so many struggle. It's everyone that we can hear that are doing all right, even if it's just even if you're just breaking even. That's important. We're going to take a phone call here really quick. Good morning. You're on Morning Magazine, and do you have Lieutenant Investigator Joe Zurfluh here with us? Do you have a question?
Hey, Joe. I really appreciate everything you do for the county, and I hope your sister's doing okay. I haven't seen her in a while.
Yeah,
but I was wondering, is there a certain time of year that you see like an influx of like criminal activity? I know going into the holidays, a lot of people are having a lot of like home invasions, and like I was just wondering if there's any particular like time of year. I know it seems like it's always around the fall that you hear a lot more about like criminal activity. I was just wondering on your thoughts on that.
Appreciate the call.
Yeah, of course. Depending on the specific type of crime. Fall numbers go up with burglaries in our county, and a lot of that is because of people coming back to their hunting cabins. Other parts of the state, it might be the summer. Certain other parts of the country, it might be the winter. So some of that has to do with, I guess, when it's discovered. Far as it actually occurring, again, it really depends on the type of crime. The nicer times of the year around here, people are out more. They're maybe more likely to, go out at night and, steal something or commit some sort of criminal damage. The winter when it's 20 below zero, some criminals don't want to be out of course, some of them do because they figure no one else will be out. So, really depends. It's really a hard. It's hard to answer that, I guess, generally.
Yeah.
But we do see a lot of our property crimes, spring, summer, your burglaries, they tend to spike a little bit in the fall just because that's when they're discovered. Daytime burglaries, of course, continue to be common for residences pretty much any time of year.
Yeah. To kind of piggyback off of that and talking about different times of year and when things are certainly one of the things our concerns at the Family Center has been people that are at home with their abusers, and especially when we had the quarantine going on and worrying about people being in those situations. That is just an example of one of the things that has been a concern since we've been hit with the pandemic and had different, people being at home more, whether they're quarantined or not. People are certainly home more now than they ever have been. Are there certain crimes? Are there certain things that have been spiking during this pandemic that more than others?
Well, and without, I did not print a statistical report.
Yeah, I don't want to press stats on you.
I could. It would take some time though, but
sure.
Personally, I did see an increase in domestic abuse incidents, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it did start around April, May. I don't see that increase now. I do review basically every report that my department generates. It's always checked by someone else. Like when I do a report, I give it to someone else.
Sure.
So, I mean, thankfully, they seem to have at least leveled off and declined, but I did see that increase personally.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's just one of those things, another thing for people to keep an eye out for something to keep in mind. And it's such a tough one for everybody, and I mean most importantly, and the victim, the person being abused, and everything. Obviously, it's the most key for them, but everybody involved. It's one of those subjects where we're still trying to get to a point where we talk about this openly, where it's not hushed conversation. And a big part of that is oftentimes, unfortunately, laid at the victim, at the person being abused, at them being brave and coming forward with the information. But it's also, neighbors and different people. We see stuff, we take stuff in, and nobody wants to put their nose in somebody else's business. And it's tough to find that balance of, well, am I doing that or am I being a good neighbor? For you, in your perspective, when people come to you with that kind of information, and I'm asking this broadly, just as a not just you personally, but officers, investigators in general, how do you work that balance? How do you find that to be, or how is it for you? Because for you guys, you go into personal lives every day when it comes to these different crimes or different things you're following up on. But something like this, a topic like this, has to be a little bit more dicey, I would imagine, or a little more you have to be a little more careful with.
Well, if you don't, people do have a sense of, I'll mind my business, you mind your business. And if you're talking about maybe your neighbor's lawn gets to 7.5 inches, that's fine. In the case of domestic abuse, even if it's not maybe intimate partners, maybe if it's just, people that happen to live together or something like that, you need to report that. Within the past year, we now do a lethality assessment program screening, which the LAP form, you might be familiar with through your work with the Family Center. But so anytime intimate partners are involved, even if it doesn't qualify as a domestic abuse, there's a statutory requirement that anyone that has a child in common, that have ever resided together as adults, or that are married, that qualifies as a domestic abuse incident. So you might qualify as a domestic but not be an intimate partner, or you might qualify as an intimate partner but not have it be a domestic. But so we do that screening form because there is a risk of serious violence, perhaps even death, to a victim in severe cases. So, if you see something and it doesn't seem right, the worst thing that's going to happen by calling the police immediately is that they're going to show up and find out that nothing occurred, or maybe what you saw wasn't what happened or something. That's the worst case scenario. the best case scenario, but potentially you could end up saving someone's life. You don't know.
Yeah, it's so important to, be brave, not just talking to the person abused, but the people that notice these things and everything, to be upfront with that information. And again, another part of our community that we're trying to bring the numbers down on, and get it to. I don't know if anything will ever get to zero, but we can try.
That should be the goal, though, right? Yeah,
Absolutely. I think of this every year, every winter when we have the reefs out. And when we talk about fire safety and that, and how key and important that is, and it certainly is. I almost wish we had something like that every couple months to highlight something and trying to bring the numbers down on these different categories and everything. I appreciate that. Was there anything else about the budget you wanted to mention?
No, I mean that's really it. The obviously this extra additional investigator. The intent is to make it a permanent position, but it is fully funded through this grant for the first 3 years. So that's really the budget might be some for next month. Maybe we get the chief deputy down here and he can go line by line.
And I'm looking forward to doing that.
I don't know if you want people to keep listening though. That might not be a good idea. But.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've made such interesting radio. Anytime you're saying numbers over the air, everybody loves hearing it. Speaking with Investigative Lieutenant Joe Zurfluh from Wood County Sheriff's Department, and appreciate the time again. I want to remind you that if you have questions for Joe, please feel free to call in 715-424-2600. One of the things that I've talked to a lot of community members about and that they appreciate, especially in these interviews, is getting a chance to kind of find out more information about certain topics. But the consensus that I've heard overall, especially coming from the top, from Sheriff Becker, is their appreciation of the approach to crime, the approach to this, that you guys don't treat this like a business. You don't treat this like, well, if I arrest this many people, we'll make this much amount of money and this kind of thing. That you don't look at people like statistics. Again, getting back to getting rid of this revolving door thing of having maybe getting it down to having just one-time offenders and people learning their lesson and you guys don't have to see them again, that kind of thing. That mentality has to start from the top, and you have to have somebody in charge and who believes in that kind of thought process and approaching things that way. And as we've talked and we've heard from Sheriff Becker about how he feels about these things. So for you guys that work with him and work in that job, is that a overall feeling? Is that something that all of you guys feel like you have? Because we talk about mentality a lot with sports, and everybody's got to be on the same page and that kind of thing. But we forget that, most jobs are like that, where everybody's got to be on the same page. Pam and I and Chuck and Steph, we're all on the same page here. We're all trying to do the same thing. We all have the same goal. Our ways of getting to it are different, but we're all trying to do the same thing. Is it similar for you guys at the Sheriff's Department?
It is. Sean Becker, even before he was sheriff, when he was patrol captain, he really pushed leadership training. And that doesn't mean, like you said, like an MBA type program where you learn how to manage. Yeah. There's a difference between managing and leading, and we are a service industry. Okay, that's our job, is to provide a service. However, it is run different in the sense that we're not looking at profit, right? Mm-hmm. We don't make anything. You don't make any more money by writing 10 tickets as opposed to writing 1. Yeah. There's an organization put on by the International Association of Chiefs of Police. It's called Leadership in Police Organizations, or LPO for short. And it's a 6-week program. I went through it. Probably all of our lieutenants have been through it. All of our sergeants, except maybe some of the newer ones, have been through it. Even people maybe without rank. His goal was to get as many people through that as he can, just like his goal was to get the whole department through critical incident training. That really, it teaches you how to manage or lead, maybe everything from, the occasional problem employee, which luckily we don't have any here, but to just, changing the mindset, like, not just doing something because you have the rank or the title or whatever and doing it, but actually making people buy in to what the department's mission is. Yeah. And so we established, core values. He put them on a challenge coin, and we really, the intent is to get people to embrace this, to treat everyone with compassion and to serve selflessly, and but also be firm and show leadership.
Yeah. I appreciate that breakdown, and so much of what you guys are doing there with that, because now more than ever, certainly, a topic that comes up every other day, it seems like, is our police departments, and that you have so much different noise out there about it. And just talking about the citizens that I know, whether it is in the south side of Chicago or it is right here in Wisconsin Rapids or any of our areas here, I have yet to talk to one person that doesn't want the police department around, that doesn't want our sheriff's department. I have not talked to one person that has ever said anything about defunding any of them or not having them. There's been nothing but appreciation from what I've heard. What I've heard, the most part over and all, is a different approach, a different mentality in this, in law enforcement in general, and almost not a relearning and a scrapping everything and starting from the ground up kind of thing. But just so much of what you were just talking about there, about leadership, about ways to do the job and ways to treat people. These are the key things. These are the important things. It's not about, we should just have robots doing this or some crazy kind of idea or anything like that. That's all politics. That's people trying to politicize something that's not political. It's more about how can we make this better? And not just for us citizens, but for you guys, for your own safety and your own, because we all have the same goal. We all want the same thing. We want a safer community. We want a safer life. We want to know that our kids are okay. We want to know that we're okay, that we can walk the street at night, all these different things. We've all got it in common, and you guys, along with us, are citizens, and you want the same thing. You're off patrol sometimes. We don't know if you're, if I didn't know you and I just saw you walking down the street, I don't know, that's a police officer. I don't know. You're just like the rest of us and everything. So you want the same things we do, and the community wants the same things you guys want. We're all trying to get to the same place. It's just the approach we take there and how to get there. And it's so key that we're doing this together, but that we're doing it the right way. The idea, this isn't a normal kind of thing where we can just scrap everything and start over. We have to organically do this it's a process. It's going to take time. The things that you guys are doing there at the Wood County Sheriff's Department, as far as these leadership programs and that, do you feel like that's leading to that?
Yes, and it started before recent political events, not political events, just societal events.
Yeah.
But to say that. Are you ever going to get to a point where, things are perfect? I don't know.
Yeah.
You should try to, but, and it's probably going to be a continual ongoing thing. I mean, law enforcement and the approach was different, 50 years ago, let's say, to how it is now. We didn't wait for any incident to happen. You get out of something what you put into it. It's as simple as, you don't show up and just start, being rude to somebody or whatever. You have to understand that whatever it is, whatever the call is, I mean, to that person, it's a big deal, and it is a big deal. And you have to just keep that in mind. And there are times when you can't talk someone into complying, but you try to, and you try to end every conflict with a peaceful resolution. Where you achieve, a lawful objective, peacefully. But I think that the trying to get the community to buy in and finding out like how do they want us to approach something. I don't think anyone wants officers that just go around just writing tickets for every little violation. There are times when maybe someone's speeding and maybe they don't need a ticket that day. Maybe you can gain compliance, right? Get them to start driving the speed limit, without doing that. But if you never wrote a ticket, everyone would speed.
Right.
They'd all just promise not to, right?
Yeah.
So how do you find that balance? I think, training, experience probably primarily. You do this long enough, you kind of find out what works, what doesn't, but don't get stuck in a rut. Don't think that you're ever done learning, because you're not.
That's such a great thing for life in general.
It is.
There is no job that no matter how good you are at it, you can get better. I remember seeing an interview right after Tom Hanks won his second Oscar, and them asking him, well, how does it feel to be at the top of the mountain and stuff? And he's like, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to get better at this. I've got work to do. I've got, no matter how good you are at your profession, you can always get better and learn and grow at it. That's a fun thing to me in life. I like that idea. I like that challenge and that kind of thing. It's great to hear that people in your industry are feeling the same kind of thing. And it's important for us moving forward here. Every job, every industry is always going to have bad apples. It's life. This is the way, there's a lot of us. There's a lot of people on this planet. You're going to have bad apples in different things. It's so important for us to understand, be able to not just group things together and say, well, because there's one bad apple, the whole batch is bad. That's not the case. You know better than that. You have a rational mind. Trust it. And understand and be able to decipher these things, be able to not categorize that kind of stuff. It's important going forward here, I think. We're going to take our final break really quick. When we come back, we'll wrap things up on Morning Magazine with Investigator Lieutenant Joe Zurfluh right here on AM 1320 WFHR. We're wrapping things up on Morning Magazine. We have Investigator Lieutenant Joe Zurfluh from the Wood County Sheriff's Department with us, and again, appreciate the time, Joe. I know that we didn't get a chance to touch on this, and I wanted to. The CIT, if you can tell us a little bit about that. I know that I just had the note of it. I wanted to make sure to just reference it.
Sure. Critical incident training. This
Yeah.
is the 8th class, so we've been doing this for several years now. It's a 40-hour, it's a full week training. It involves dealing with people in crisis. So heavy focus on mental health. Obviously, law enforcement officers are being asked to do things that before we were never asked to do, and with increasing frequency. And so how to recognize the signs of a person in crisis, how to respond to them, how to interact with them, how to get them the services and the help that they need without being a cop, with taking more of a compassionate approach. So our operations captain is actually currently in this class, Quentin Ellis. And this was something that Sean Becker wanted the entire department to attend, going back to when he was patrol captain.
I think, everybody could use more empathy in their daily lives right now and putting themselves in other people's shoes. It's a whole different thing to ask of our police departments in some ways, because you hit on it earlier. I mean, there are so many things that we ask of our police department that really, I feel like, just speaking for myself here, that we shouldn't be asking you guys to do. You guys got enough on your plate. We should have different people taking care of things. That's a perfect world I'm talking about. We don't live in that, obviously. So you guys, it being things the way they are, it's great to hear that taking some initiative about this stuff and kind of looking into it. Have you taken the class yet?
I have.
Okay.
Yes.
Were there parts of it? Because I know you pretty well, fairly well, I should say. You seem like an empathetic guy. You seem like somebody that this class wouldn't necessarily something that I would make you take, but it's great that Sheriff Becker asked you guys to do this. Were there things that you took from the class that maybe you didn't think about going into it, or that learned from it or grew from it?
Yeah, absolutely. I did the class for everybody. I mean, it doesn't really matter your years of experience. There's some you're going to get out of it. Mostly, what does a person with certain, maybe like schizophrenia, let's say, like what do they go through? It's almost impossible for us to really understand, but you can get as close as you can. So there were various exercises, practical applications of a technique that you might have been trained on a given day, on how to initially de-escalate. Right, that's like the big thing now. We hear it, and a lot of these are like catchphrases, and everyone thinks, they make people feel better. But I mean, we really are. That really is our goal. I think law enforcement is in a point right now where there's an old saying, jack of all trades, master of none. Well, you really do need to be a master of all trades now. Yeah. Because we're people. We are members of the community. We want peaceful outcomes to anything that we go to, but there's all kinds of things, from criminal to civil liability, to maybe not, just your own feelings, you didn't get that person the help they needed, and it's very important.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, and cannot thank you enough for the time. I know when you got up this morning, you probably weren't expecting to have to spend an hour with me on the air, but
They told me yesterday.
Did they? Okay,
They
good.
did,
So you
so
knew going into this
I
at
did.
least, but you did fantastic today, man. I really appreciate you being in. Please do me a favor, say hi to everybody over there at the department for us, and thank you to you and everybody over there for what you do for our community. We appreciate you. Stay safe and strong out there.
Thank you.
A big thank you to our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, Kevin, the gang over there. We appreciate you all. Thanks for being in with us. Join us tomorrow for more Morning Magazine right here on AM 1320 WFHR.